Summary of the Seagull by Anton Chekhov. The first part of The Seagull starts at Pyotr Nikolaevich Sorin's country house on a summer evening. A makeshift stage has been set up next to the large lake, and Sorin's nephew Konstantin Gavrilovich Treplyov is putting on an experimental play for Sorin and his other summer guests, such as Treplyov's mother and Sorin's sister Arkadina Irina Nikolaevna, a famous actress, and her writer-boyfriend Boris Alexeyevich Trigorin. A caretaker named Ilya Afanasevich Shamriv, his wife Paulina Andreevna, and their daughter Masha, who loves Treplyov, are also at the estate. So is a poor schoolteacher named Semyon Semyonovich Medvedenko, who is hopelessly in love with Masha, and so is Yevgeny Sergeyevich Dorn, a country doctor and Sorin's longtime friend. Treplyov fusses around the stage and checks the special effects with the worker Yakov. At the same time, he tells Sorin that he's afraid that Nina Mikhailovna Zareknia, his love and muse, will be late for her performance. Treplyov tells Sorin that he is worried about his writing job and thinks that people are only interested in it because he is Arkadina's son. The guys talk about Arkadina's vanity, jealousy, and her relationship with Trigorin until Nina comes in, out of breath and excited. She gives Treplyov a kiss and tells him that she's been away from her controlling father and wife, who live across the lake, for just 1 hour. Treplyov tells the guests to go to the lake right away because the show needs to start. Many years after the end of the world, Treplyov's play takes place on a barren, empty version of Earth. Nina is the only character, and she plays the universal soul of all people, who has been left to rot on the destroyed Earth and avoid Satan. A loud voice from Arkadina makes fun of the play's avant-garde nature until Treplyov ends the performance and storms off. Nina meets Arkadina and Trigorin kindly when she comes out from backstage, but she quickly tells them she has to go home before she makes her dad mad. Masha has been looking for Treplyov and found him when he came back hidden. He goes after Nina as soon as he sees she's gone. When Masha goes back to the stage, Treplyov is no longer there. She tells Dorn about the terrible pain she's in while crying. The kind Dorn feels bad for all the young lovers who are sad because they can't be together. Act 2 takes place later in the week, and all of Sorin's friends gather on a big croquet field. Nina is thrilled about the chance to spend some alone time at the lake with her heroes while her father and stepmother are out of town for a few days. Arkadina tells Nina stories about how beautiful her life is in Moscow and makes fun of how boring and lazy life is in the country. When Arkadina asks Shamriv and Paulina to get a horse ready for her to take into town for a short time, they can't find one. Arkadina has a temper tantrum and says she will go to Moscow right away. From across the lake, she yells for Trigorin to come inside with her and get ready to leave. When Paulina is alone with her secret boyfriend, Dorn, she begs him to take her away from the country, but he won't promise to be with her. Nina is left alone while everyone else leaves in a rage. She thinks to herself how strange it is to see famous people acting so quaintly. Treplyov has been sad for days because Nina doesn't seem to care about him anymore. He walks up to Nina with a dead bird in his hands and drops it at her feet. Nina tells Treplyov that she doesn't understand anything about him anymore because she is so scared. Telling Nina to enjoy her time with a real genius, Treplyov tells her as Trigorin approaches. He then leaves her and Trigorin alone. Nina asks Trigorin what it's like to be popular and then tells her that she really wants to be a well-known actor. Trigorin, on the other hand, says he envies Nina's youth and innocence because he feels stuck in his job as a writer, constantly afraid of getting bad reviews and using his own experiences as material. Trigorin pulls out his notebook and makes a note for a story about a girl who grows up on the side of a lake until a man comes along and destroys her because he has nothing better to do. Trigorin hears Arkadina calling out to him from a window. She tells him that they'll be staying a little longer after all. Nina is very happy. At the start of Act 3, Arkadina and Trigorin are getting ready to go back to Moscow, which makes Sorin's dining room very busy. Masha tells Trigorin that she is going to marry Medvedenko to forget about her love for Treplyov, who recently tried to kill himself but failed when a bullet hit the side of his head. Masha thinks that Treplyov, who is sad, is jealous of Trigorin. Nina walks into the room to say goodbye. She gives Trigorin a special plaque that she had etched with the title of one of his books, the page number, and the lines that go with it. She begs Trigorin not to forget about her and tells him to find her again before he leaves. Arkadina and Soren walk into the room, but Trigorin quickly leaves to get a copy of his book and look up the lines that the medallion refers to. Arkadina says she feels bad leaving Soren in bad health and Treplyov having just tried to kill himself, but she needs to get back to the city so badly. Even though she thinks about giving Soren and Treplyov some money, she decides she needs it to buy outfits for herself back in Moscow. He walks into the room and tells Arkadina to change the bandages on his head. While Arkadina cleans her son's wounds, he begs her to break up with Trigorin and tells her that Trigorin wants Nina. Arkadina gets angry and calls Treplyov a nobody. The two men attack each other violently until they lose their cool and apologize to each other. He goes back into the room and reads the lines out loud. "If ever my life is useful to you, come and take it," is written on Nina's medallion. As soon as Treplyov leaves the room, Trigorin asks Arkadina to stay longer. When Arkadina finds out that Trigorin really does love Nina, she falls at his feet and begs him not to leave her. She tells him that she can't live without the greatest living writer leaving her, and Trigorin gives in to her charm and agrees to go back to Moscow with her. They leave with Shamriv, Soren, and Medvedenko for the station. After a short time, Trigorin runs back in, but he forgot his walking stick. Nina tells him she's leaving home to try her luck as an actor in Moscow after they run into each other. Trigorin tells Nina where to stay and says he will find her there before giving her a powerful kiss. 2 years have passed since Acts 3 and 4. Soren's house is where Treplyov lives, and Masha, Medvedenko, Arkadina, and Trigorin are all back to visit. Treplyov has become a real writer and has turned one of the living rooms into a place to write. The fact that Masha is married to Medvedenko doesn't change the fact that she still loves the sad Treplyov. Soren's health is getting worse, and he struggles with his fear of dying. The group talks about Nina's arachnia. Treplyov says that she had a child with Trigorin after she moved to Moscow. As soon as the baby died, Trigorin left her and went back to Arkadina. Nina then joined a bad theater company and started touring the provinces. Treplyov says Nina is said to have been back in town for a short time and is staying at a rundown hotel near the station. He seems to enjoy telling everyone how bad things are for her. Soren, on the other hand, feels bad for Nina's pain. The room is filled with Arkadina and Trigorin. Treplyov and Trigorin meet each other, and Arkadina tries to end their grudge by telling her son that Trigorin bought and brought with him a copy of the most recent magazine that Treplyov has written for. The moody Treplyov is the only one who doesn't agree to play bingo when Arkadina offers it. The others talk about Treplyov's growing writing business while he's out for a walk, but Arkadina says she hasn't read a word he's ever written. The group eats something in the kitchen after the game of bingo. When Treplyov gets back from his walk, he looks over his draft pages and curses how average they are. The doorbell rings soon, and Nina comes to visit. Treplyov is shocked to see her. They both agree to let her in, and she begs him to close the door so that no one else can see how she is. Nina is messy and confused, and she talks in a crazy, rambling way. When she tries to talk about normal things like books, she starts crying. Treplyov still loves her as much as he did a long time ago. He begs her to stay with him because he says he will never be happy without her. Nina tells Treplyov that he shouldn't love her and calls herself a gull as she talks about her bad relationship with Trigorin. She says that her life is a sordid mess right now, but she still wants to be famous as a great actor. She tells Treplyov she has to go, but she begs him to find her in Moscow when she becomes famous. Nina quickly leaves the house after giving Treplyov a hug. Before he storms off into the next room, Treplyov tears up all of his papers. This time, the group comes back for another game of bingo. They have just started when they hear a loud noise in the next room. Because Arkadina thinks Treplyov may have killed himself, Dorn offers to check it out. He takes a quick look and tells her that his first aid kit has just fallen off the counter. Arkadina picks up the game again. Dorn pulls Trigorin away and says he wants to talk about one of the man's latest publications. Once they are out of hearing, though, Dorn tells Trigorin to take Arkadina into the next room. It is true that Treplyov shot himself.
About the author. Anton Chekhov was born in 1860 in a port town in the south of Russia. He grew up in a home where his father was violent and broke the family's bank account, which served as the basis for many of Chekhov's plays and short stories. In 1879, Chekhov went to Moscow to go to medical school. He knew he had to support his big, poor family. He wrote and sold humorous short stories and sketches to make money while he was in school. Chekhov made more money as a writer than as a doctor, but for most of his life he saw himself as a doctor first and foremost. In the middle of the 1880s, Chekhov was sick, but he didn't tell many people that he had TB. In the late 1880s, he went to the Ukraine for health reasons and was hired to write a play. This was the start of his real writing career. Chekhov had a lot of success for a long time. Through the late 1890s, Chekhov's health kept getting worse, so he bought a country house in Yalta. This is where he wrote many of his most famous works, such as The Lady with the Dog, The Seagull, and Three Sisters. In July 1904, Chekhov died.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.